To undervolt or to overclock? That is the question that gamers have been asking since the voltage slider was handed to them on a copper plate. 'Cause wires are made with copper?
It's going to be another boring one, isn't it?
At least he didn't put on his glasses. I'm going to need my glasses for this. I'm going to show you how to undervolt an Nvidia GPU and show some benchmark results to compare undervolting with overclocking. I'm mrlestick, and as you can see, I'm a stick. I'm always overclocked and undervolted.
That means he has a small penis and he uses it like a rabbit, quick and often.
Okay, now why would you undervolt your GPU? The idea is that you can get the same performance or even better while using less power. Less power means a cooler and quieter GPU. And overclocking, well, everyone knows about that, so I'm not going to say anything more.
Thank God he's not explaining that too.
Now, moving on to more interesting things.
You mean this is the end of the video?
No, I'm going to show people how to undervolt an Nvidia GPU.
You stick, that's not interesting.
So what you're gonna need is MSI Afterburner and Furmark. If you don't have a GPU from MSI, that's okay. All the other companies' software are just reskins of Afterburner. If you want to use your reskinned Afterburner, that's okay too. But I'm not sure that the same shortcut will work for you. Before you start, disable the Apply at Windows Startup option. Otherwise, you can hold Control after logging into Windows to prevent Afterburner from applying the voltage settings. The point is to get more out of your GPU, so it will eventually crash while you're tweaking the settings. Sometimes the drivers recover well, other times you're going to need a hard reset. Okay, so now you should start Furmark to give you a sense of where your GPU is working at on a full load. My 3060 is hovering at around 900 millivolts and somewhere above 1600 megahertz. Everyone is different, some will have bigger values, others will have smaller values.
Yours is definitely small.
You should also keep an eye on the FPS in Furmark to get a sense of what you're losing or gaining. For me, it's around 175 FPS, and I swear it's bigger when I'm not recording.
That's what they all say.
You can now press on the little button next to the core clock slider, or press Ctrl F. This will open the voltage frequency curve, and although it seems crazy to change all this it's surprisingly easy. First, move the clock slider all the way down, which moves all the points down. Now, pick your maximum voltage. You should try to reduce it in small increments. I'll choose 850 millivolts because I've already gone through this before. And I'll first drag the point at around 1600, which should be stable. Of course, you could go lower, but who wants lower performance? Then click on the apply button and you get this pretty curve which forces the GPU to top out at your selected point. You can see that the FPS dropped by around 8, which is expected, but there's also a 2-degree drop in temperature almost immediately, which is what we're after. Now it's just a matter of fine-tuning. Basically, raise your current point, preferably in small increments, until you reach the maximum stable frequency. I'm not going to do that now because it's just going to kill my recording. When you reach the failing point, your screen will go blank, but the drivers will most likely recover since the GPU isn't under load anymore, so it will drop to reasonable frequency. If they don't recover, you'll need a hard reset. You should still be fine at this point, but if your system keeps crashing in Windows, remember that you can always hold Control on Windows Login to prevent Afterburner from applying the voltage curve. At this point, you know where your GPU fails for the current voltage, so just drop the point by 2 steps. Even though the previous step seemed stable, it could still be too close to the edge in some situations.
D2R!
You should save a few profiles with different voltages, because you could still have surprises.
D2R!
Just press the refresh button and pick a different voltage. I can go to around 1850 MHz, which actually gives me a slightly higher FPS in Furmark and a lower temperature than the stock settings. So how did it go power-wise? With the undervolt, the GPU is using around 160 watts compared to the stock 170 watts and the max overclock of 180 watts. But let's see how this reflects in gaming. In D2R, I reached an average FPS of 83 at stock 86 with the Undervolt, and 91 with the Overclock. Temperatures are different, 63 degrees with the Undervolt, 65 at stock, and 67 with the Overclock. Now, D2R is weird because it gets the GPU hotter than other games I play, and the frame rate isn't stellar either. The game looks good, but not that good. A quick Google search shows that I'm not the only one seeing this behavior. But you can't beat nostalgia. Moving on, in Fortnite I got an average FPS of 103 with stock settings, 108 with the Undervolt, and 119 with the Overclock. Temperatures are more interesting. I got 63 degrees at stock, 66 with the Overclock, and 53 with the Undervolt. And that's not a typo. It's 10 degrees cooler. In Overwatch 2, there's a similar trend. Average FPS of 140 with the stock settings, 141 with the Undervolt, and 143 with the Overclock. Max temperatures were 62 for the stock settings, 64 for the Overclock, and 53 again with the Undervolt. All of these tests were run with a static fan curve of 45%, because that's the maximum settings where I can barely hear the GPU fan spinning. If you keep the same stock fan curve, you probably won't see such big differences in temperatures.
Mine are bigger than yours.
So, at least for me, doing an Undervolt with a bit of an overclock is the way to go. I get a slight benefit to FPS, and I see an 8 to 10 degrees drop in temperatures in all my games, which are not D2R, and with minimal effort. And if you like this video, just give it a thumbs down. YouTube doesn't care, but I'll show it in the title. And if you also subscribe while you're there, your GPU will run 5 degrees cooler with a 10% increase in performance. Just saying. It's funny that Intel is in the GPU market now, but everyone is still saying either go with Team Red or Team Green. Nobody's on Team Blue.
We can't be friends anymore.